Okay, so then how do
yeah,
you so there's all this,
stuff.
practice and
Uh-huh.
learning and influences. How then, cuz now you're building up quite like I don't know what you call it, like a rap sheet or a resume, or
Yeah.
you have like at least two albums that I know of,
Mhm.
a few EPs, and you just wrote like another one in Montreal, and like
Yeah. So how do we
what
get
is
there?
what is the creative process? I know like I went to a show
Totally.
recently. Was that December or January
Which one?
at Space?
October. When
Okay.
I did that. No, no worries. Time is alive.
Time.
Time is alive.
What is time?
We're 2.5 years in the pandemic. I don't even know.
So so that was in Evanston, and it was a
Yeah.
Space, and like I mean there were a lot of people there. There was like 200 people there.
Yeah.
And
I have filled the room.
and
Worked
so
hard on that.
he's up there on stage with this big piano, and I'm like I was actually sitting against the wall, and the lighting was like it's a really cool
It's a
space.
beautiful. It's space. It's a beautiful
It's
space.
called Space.
It's called
It's
space.
Space. And you played the entire album, and I just like put my head on the wall and I just like drifted
So yeah.
away. And that album in particular is called Songs I Wrote on a Winter Night.
Pieces I wrote on a
Pieces
cold
I
winter night. But pretty
okay.
much. Yeah, I know it's kind of convoluted. I won't lie. But yeah, pieces I wrote on a cold winter night. So I'll fast track this whole thing here because I tangented. But anyway, so that whole like this newer writing, essentially, I'm in a newer writing style and a newer kind of more creative and free process at the moment, like in my
Okay.
writing, which is why I think things are just coming out very rapidly.
Well, that's another thing too. I was curious about is because
Yeah,
like you're doing all this learning, and then now you're like
just putting
pumping
it out.
stuff out.
Yeah. So I have to thank a little bit of. I take a very intuitive approach now to writing. So when I said before I learned really rigorous compositional processes,
Mm-hmm.
eventually I started relying on my gut to work on these pieces.
Okay.
I had another teacher. It was the funny like I will this will forever be ingrained in my mind. I bring a piece to her. She's like, I show it to her. She's like, "This is an amazing academic piece. I think you hate it." And I was like, okay. So that stuck with me, and there was a lot of rethinking I had to do. But eventually, it started to become this thing where I was like, okay, I have this idea. What if I just kind of trust my gut a little bit more about how to write it musically and expressively? I can get
Okay.
the idea that I want, but what if I rely on myself rather than all these graphs and charts?
Yeah.
So I started writing more pieces where I would be like, okay, I'm going to just kind of trust the flow of it. And it started working out great. And I took that approach. And as an improviser, I run this series called Music, Stillness, Solidarity. And I literally improvise for a full hour without stopping every Tuesday, 5:30 to 6:30 on Twitch and now at St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Church in person. But I run for an hour, like without stopping. So I force myself to come up with material as I go. And I do have my I have my trusted gimmicks and things like that. Like improvisers have things that work for them, right? We have
Okay.
our list, our bag of tricks, and that kind of helps me with the
Yeah.
process. So people started asking me like, when are you gonna start writing this stuff down? Because I love listening to it. It's really expressive. It's really beautiful. It sounds like you. Why is this stuff not available for me to listen to?
Mm.
And I was like, you're right. So I went to Banff in 2019. I applied for a residency there to write a piano album of this kind of stuff. I started writing more minimal. I started shifting my style to polyrhythmic minimalist complex music, like writing beautiful lyrical things, but that's a little bit of a tinge of
Okay.
difficulty to it.
Yeah.
And I really started enjoying that, and it was really easy for me to write.